Jackson. He's a teacher, coach, right?
Something.
At Westover, right? Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yep. Thank you. Appreciate it. Morning. Good. Somebody remembered that from last time. That's good. I kind of almost walked out after that video played, I'm not going to lie. It's kind of hard to follow that. Nothing I do is going to be that good in a minute, so please don't hold me to too high of a standard. I'm going to pray real quick, and then I'm going to lay out what we're going to talk about this morning, and then hopefully I get you guys to lunch early. Lord, thank you for this morning. Thank you for allowing us to be here, to be with our family, to spend time with you, to be challenged, to be pushed, to be molded by your truth. I pray the things that we would need this morning would stick out, that it would cut on us, Lord. Push us out of our comfort zone so that our senses would be sharpened, that we wouldn't be zoned out, wouldn't be comfortable, but we'd be aware. It's your name I pray. Amen. All right, I'm going to do it to you again. Look to somebody on your right side and say, I'm awesome. You got to do it. I'm watching you. Now to your left side and say, I'm amazing. The things that you believe in your most inner core are actually written in physical neurons in your brain. And so when we watch a video that talks about your identity and some goofy guy on the stage asks you to tell somebody next to you you're amazing or awesome, when you think about identity, the first thing that's going to come up is whatever you've believed and allowed to be hardwired into your brain. So there's a good chance a lot of you didn't believe what you just told somebody. There is a neuroscientist named Dr. Caroline Leaf. We're not going to talk about it this morning, get into depth. I love that nerdy stuff. But she's a believer who's done a ton of research on the brain and how the Bible and how God impacts our thought life and who we are. And so she's actually proven and shown in 21 days you can actually break down any negative thoughts you have in your brain and rewire your brain to match up with God's word. So that is why every time I come in here, it's a challenge for me and it's a challenge for you to maybe challenge some of those thoughts in your brain that do not line up with God's word. So this morning we're going to be talking about the price. I'm wanting to challenge you, push you on a very deep level this morning. I hope that if I can't do anything to make you move by what I say, if I have to, I will come step on your toes to make you move. That's what I tell all my athletes. It is my job to make you grow. And if I can't do or say anything in leading you to make that happen, I will stomp on your foot to make you move. Because when you move, you grow, correct? I'm willing to do that. So this morning, pay attention for a short period so I don't have to step on your nice new shoes, your Sunday shoes. I'm just kidding, I wouldn't do that. But this morning we're going to talk about being willing, being able to pay the price that God sets out before us to be everything that he's created us and asked us to be. So some of the questions that we're going to start off this morning. What are you willing to do and give in order to be who your friends need you to be? What are you willing to do to be who you need to be for your family, for your spouse, who you need to be for your kids? What are you willing to give and to do to pay the price to be who you need to be for your coworkers? Ultimately, what are you willing to give to be who God's created you to be? What he's asking you to do? There's a price. It doesn't mean it's negative. Anytime there's a price does not mean that it is a negative meaning. I want to clear that up before we even start. There are prices I'm very willing to pay in life, and it brings no negative feelings towards me in my life when I think about accomplishing or doing something. And there are some situations that I realize that I've paid prices in my life for things that will never bring me back an investment. And we need to begin to see those things. Even if the price is high, even if it's steep, even if it's difficult, you have to understand, you have to ask yourself what's at the end. So we're going to talk about a few stories out of the Bible. There's many of them, but we're going to talk about two specific stories in the Bible where God helped somebody through a very difficult situation or asked a high price of somebody to grow them, mold them, and to see if they would be obedient to what he was asking them to do. The first story, if you want to bring out your Bibles, electronic devices, or if you've got Genesis 22 memorized, you can just listen. That's not me. That's why it's on my iPad. We're going to be in Genesis 22, verses 10 and 12. And we're going to talk about Abraham being asked to sacrifice his son Isaac. I'm going to give some details. I'm going to set the scene a little bit before we get to these verses while you're turning there. Angel of the Lord comes to Abraham and says, Abraham, take your son Isaac, the one you love, and take him to Mount Moriah and build an altar there. And on that altar, you're going to sacrifice Isaac to the Lord. Now, when we read the Bible, a lot of the details, reactions, attitudes, perceptions, some of those things aren't written in there. And I challenged myself as a parent what Abraham was thinking. Any parent in the room can relate, not only to Abraham, but ultimately we'll see at the end of the message, to what God has done in being willing to sacrifice a child in any sort of manner. Abraham takes Isaac. He takes some of his servants. He packs a donkey. He gets the wood for the sacrifice, and they head out. It's a 3-day journey to Moriah. They get there, and Abraham says to the servants, wait here. You stay here. Isaac and I are going to go up the mount. We're going to make a sacrifice, and we'll come back to you. Abraham takes the knife, the things to make the fire, and he puts the wood on Isaac. Now, Isaac and Abraham are heading up the mountain, and lo and behold, Isaac is probably a sharp young man, says, hey, Dad, you know, where's that little white thing called a lamb that we're supposed to put on the sacrifice here? It's not adding up. I'm kind of confused as to what we're doing with wood and fire and a knife, and it's just me and you, and you've got the knife. Does that make sense? They've had 3 days going there, no lamb. They're hiking up. He's now carrying the wood. His dad has the knife and the fire, and Isaac's probably not feeling too confident about the situation. And I can only imagine Abraham being his dad, being able to answer, having to answer those types of questions. I doubt he told Isaac at all what was going on. I couldn't tell my son. If God asked me to do that, you don't tell Isaac before you leave, hey son, I need you to pack up. Grab your toys. We're going to Mount Moriah, a 3-day journey. Once we get there, I'm putting you on the altar and I'm sacrificing you. Okay, Dad, I'll get my Captain America. Let's go. It doesn't happen that way. But every time I read this story, the fact that Abraham said yes challenges me. The same way it challenges me in what Jesus did on the cross. I couldn't imagine asking my son to die for the people in this room, let alone the entire earth. I don't know what I would do if God asked me specifically even to have my son die for him. That's the challenge for me. That's the challenge for you as a parent. There's a lot of things that God could ask of us, a lot of prices that he could ask us to pay. And if you're not in a place where you've already considered what you would do when asked to pay a price like that, you're probably not prepared. As I have not been many, many times. Specifically in verses 10 and 12, they get to Mount Moriah, they get to the top, and we start here at verse 10. Abraham, then he reached out his hand and took the knife to slay his son. But the angel of the Lord called out to him from heaven, Abraham, Abraham. Here I am, he replied. Do not lay a hand on the boy, he said. Do not do anything to him. Now I know that you fear God because you have not withheld from me your son, your only son. God is all knowing. Why did he have to let Abraham get all the way to the point to where he was actually lifting the knife to sacrifice his son, to have it proven to God that he was committed? I personally believe it's because we're not all knowing. It's one thing to say, God, if you asked me to do that, I would do it. It's another thing to go all the way to where Isaac or Abraham made it with Isaac, and to have to be stopped by an angel of the Lord because you're being obedient. I'm going to say that again. It's one thing to say you would do something. Abraham had to be stopped by the angel of the Lord. Abraham will never have to doubt whether he was going to go through with that or not. He was committed. The only thing that stopped him was God sending a messenger. There are times where I've said, oh, I believe, and I've doubted my own faith the years as I've been challenged. You may have been in the same boat. But there are instances in my life where I've been challenged and I've paid the price, and you can't take that from me. Why? Because I saw it through. God will make you go through things and finish them so that it can't be stolen from you simply because it was only a thought in your mind. You actually experienced it. Your words are claims for what you believe and care about. Your actions are evidence that either support or negate what you claim with your words. Let me say that again. Your words are claims for what you believe and care about. That's all they are, claims. But your actions are the evidence that support those words. You can say what you want all day long. Everybody around you is still watching to see you do it. Period. I'm at a school where there are 300 kids that try out for football for 7th and 8th grade. And the biggest thing I tell those kids over and over and over and over, don't tell me you want to make the team. You come out and show me. Because you can tell me all day long you want to win a championship, you want to win a state title, you want to do all these things. But if I watch you practice and you don't show me that, I don't believe you. I would rather you come out and not say a word to me and then go out and show me with your actions that you won't stop until you get what you've set out to accomplish. Then, without even saying a word to me, I'll believe that you're not going to be stopped until you at least spend everything chasing down that mission. That's what Jesus did. Jesus said, I only say what the Father tells me to say, and I only do what the Father tells me to do. Nothing else. And if he said it, he did it. Sometimes he never even said anything about it. And people watched him perform things that challenged everything we believe in as human beings. He was willing to pay the price. Because it's easy, it's almost free to say something. But it always costs you something to act that out. Your actions portray your desires and intentions. So naturally, as humans, what do? Whatever we like, whatever we care about, we go out of our way to do those things, okay? And sometimes we avoid responsibility, things at work, whatever it is, to sometimes enjoy the things that make us happy, a hobby, maybe spending money. Maybe it's spending time with your family, going to your kids' sporting events. Whatever it may be, you naturally gravitate towards the things where your passion and your heart lie. It's just the truth. So when it comes down to it and people are watching you in your life, you can see what somebody genuinely cares about with the way they carry themselves. With Abraham in the situation where he was asked to sacrifice Isaac, he cared more about being obedient to God than he cared about keeping his son. I mean, you would think that wouldn't be in the same sentence. But God was asking Abraham to do nothing different than what he would end up doing, except he saw it through with Jesus by sending his son on the cross. Let me say that again. Abraham cared more about being obedient to God than keeping his son Isaac. If that doesn't challenge you, if we talk about nothing else this morning, especially as a parent, I know that there are students in the room, and I know that as I was a student, as I was a kid, hadn't experienced having my own children, it is different. But it's still something that can resonate with your heart. Understanding having siblings or cousins, baby brothers and sisters, whatever it may be, it still resonates that God was asking Abraham to be more obedient to him, to love him more than he loved his own things, his own family. Because ultimately, no matter in this life or the next, God will always be the only one that can provide what you need. Even if he'd let Abraham go through with it, Isaac would have been with the King of Heaven, receiving everything he needed for an eternity. There was nothing that God was asking Abraham to do that in the grand scheme of things was robbing Isaac of anything. And that is why we have to remember that there are so many things past this life in this world, and it will help you pay the price you need to when it's your turn up to the plate. So let's talk about, let's talk about desires in some very easy scenarios that we can relate to as examples of how what you want dictates on what you do, okay? So let me ask you a few easy questions. Would anybody in the room walk to Borger barefoot in the heat of the day on the asphalt for a cheeseburger? Okay? I mean, it's the best cheeseburger in the world. Maybe. I figured there'd be some maybes. I used to do this question in youth ministry, and all the kids were like, "Oh yeah, I'd go do that. Yeah, cheeseburger, yeah." And I'm like, no, you wouldn't. It's free, a free cheeseburger. Anybody else now? A free one? Nobody would walk to Borger barefoot from here for a free cheeseburger. Not a single soul. Let's change the scenario. Would anybody walk from here to Borger barefoot, heat of the day, on the asphalt, to save your own child? That's a given, right? I mean, most of us would run as much as we could and nearly kill ourselves trying to get there. I think my dad back there said no. If it was my kids, his grandkids, he'd be like, For me, he'd be like, "Oh, son, it's been a good run. It's been a good run. I'll stay here and watch the kiddos for you. I'll raise them." I saw him back there. He's trying to act like he didn't. I saw him. When the outcome is different and your desire changes, you're now willing to pay a price you weren't willing to in the first scenario. Does that make sense? Basic scenarios basic examples to help us understand what God will ask us to do at times, and sometimes how we have to be ready to pay a price that can be very challenging. Do you know as a parent that you would live with regret if you looked at the price, if you looked at how far it was from Borger, and you got scared and said, oh, this is going to hurt too bad, I can't go. And you didn't even try. When our Heavenly Father asks us to take off down the road, and you feel like you're unprepared, you feel like you have no shoes on, you feel like it's too hot, and you feel like the pavement hurts too bad, you have to be in a situation where you've prepared your heart, you want Him bad enough that you say, I don't feel like I can do this, but I'm starting. I don't feel like I'm prepared, but I'm going. I don't know if I can make it. I don't know if I can make it to Borger to save my child, but I'm leaving now. God, I don't feel like I'm equipped to do what you're asking me to do, but I'll go. And if I fall, I'll know you catch me. You will catch me every single time. He's not asking you to be the hero. He's asking you to trust in the hero, and that's Him. He's not asking you to be equipped. He's asking you to be prepared to receive equipment from Him. You have to stop focusing on the gift and start focusing on the gift giver. Because anytime you need something to get somewhere in life, you need to pay a price. He will give you everything you need. One more example. Would you train an hour a month to be the next Ultimate Fighter champion? 1 hour every month. Do you think you would accomplish being the champion of the UFC, or let's just say any sport that you might relate to, training 1 hour a month? Nah. You probably get winded eating honey buns, training an hour a month. You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying. If you wanted to be the next champion of the UFC, would you train multiple times a day, multiple hours every day to accomplish that goal? If I told you right now that you had to fight in a championship bout, the UFC, do you think you'd make a change to your lifestyle to accommodate you not going in there and getting your butt whooped? I know I would. You would pay the price that matched the goal you had to reach. And if you didn't, and you went into the ring in the UFC for the championship bout, you would reap everything you'd put in, good or bad. So it's really hard for you to look at your spouse and say you care, say you're passionate, and you don't spend time showing him or her that you're willing to do the things that make them excited, that make them happy. It's hard to tell your kids that you're behind them, that you support them, and yet you're absent-minded, absent physically. You're not there every chance you can be. Your spouse, your kids, the people around you, they should know you as one of the most influential people in loving them. There should be nobody that shows my wife more tender love and care than me. And if there's somebody on this earth that makes her more secure, I have not paid the price in spending the time to know her, to get close to her. I have not proven with my actions that I'm willing to go the distance to earn that position in her heart. Now, do I mean before God? No. But as a human being, there should be no other name of somebody that makes her feel more comfortable in anything she does every day. Husbands, wives, it's easy to say something. But there are too many people 20 years down the road that say they've drifted apart. Because it's really easy to say, I love you. It's not always easy to show it. That's a challenge to all of us. Marriage is one of the most difficult things. It is not easy. But are you willing to pay the price? Another example we're going to talk about before I wrap up is in 1 Samuel 17, 34 through 37. We're going to talk about when David goes out, gets ready to go out and fight Goliath. As a man, this chapter in the Bible gets me fired up every time. But we're going to talk about what he says to King Saul as proof and evidence that he should be the one to go out there and do it. David is most scholars believe, a teenager at this point. And his dad, Jesse, sends him with some pizzas. That's right, pizzas. It was actually grain and bread and cheese, but I know if I was his brothers and I was stressing out, and I think about stress eating, pizza is like the top choice, right? I tear up some pizza when I'm stress eating. So he delivers some pizzas, but David hears Goliath come out and yell the insults he's been doing for 40 days and 40 nights to the Israelites. And David basically says, hey, yo, what's this punk yelling at the Israelites for? Why is he saying all these mean things, and why has not anybody done anything about it? And all the soldiers are kind of like, King Saul says that whoever kills this guy, he'll give a lot of money. He'll even give his daughter to that soldier to be married to. David's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I asked why we're allowing this Philistine to insult the army of the God of the universe. His brother's here, his oldest brother, and says, hey, what are you doing over here? Probably getting jealous. Probably getting aggravated with his little brother over here running his head. Says, where'd you leave all those little sheep at? Don't you need to be going home? And David said, why? Hey, I can be here asking some questions. Leave me alone. He turns around and asks again, why is this guy out here and has not been silenced yet for speaking against the God of the universe and his people? David is wondering why nobody has the heart enough, the faith enough to go out and trust that God would have put this guy down a long time ago. It's the same with whatever you're facing in your life. Whatever giants you have that you're avoiding. The Israelites stood there for 40 days and let that giant bully them around with insults every single day. I've let that happen. Fear, insecurity, problems, challenges, I've avoided them. And they have just yelled at me how I'm insignificant. You can't handle it. I'm going to destroy you. You won't make it. And I hid in fear. Because, as I talked about earlier, there's been many times where I say I believe, but unwilling to pay the price with my actions. I doubted. Didn't know if I could do it. I didn't want to be crushed. And so verse 34 in 1 Samuel 17 But David said to Saul, your servant has been keeping his father's sheep. When a lion or bear came and carried off a sheep from the flock, I went after it, struck it, and rescued the sheep from its mouth. When it turned on me, I seized it by its hair, struck it, and killed it. I think I read that twice. There's an echo in here. Your servant has killed both the lion and the bear. This uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them, because he has defied the armies of the living God. The Lord who rescued me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will rescue me from the hand of this Philistine. So when you're interviewing to go fight a giant and you have a resume where you've already killed a lion and a bear with your bare hands, you're kind of a shoo-in for the job. Does that make sense? Anybody that had gone up to King Saul and said, I'm going to go out and fight that guy because I feel tough. I got a cool sword, cool shield, and I'm a soldier. Hoorah. Does that make sense? David came up and said, listen, if you want proof as to why you should send me out there to show him why he should not stand against God's army, anytime that the bear or the lion tried to take my family's income, our property, I knew that God would give me anything I needed. I'm just a boy, but I went and took that lion and that bear by the hair. I killed it. It was taking what was mine because God said so. This wasn't pride in what David had done. David was good at believing in what God would do. That's why he was confident. David was willing to go out and be made fun of by the Israelites and by Goliath. He was willing to pay the price to face a giant with no armor to represent God and his kingdom in front of everybody. David was good at trusting. David had experienced a struggle with life and death, adversity in a sense that I don't even know what it means to tangle with something of that power and that force. So yeah, David wasn't very doubtful because he'd already been there. Once again, you could not take away the moments he had with God where God had delivered what he had given him from the mouth of the lion and the bear, because those were memories. Those are things he had walked through. If I'm in the forest and say, man, I know God could help me beat that lion up, and never did it, there's always that question. But I've actually allowed God to use me to do something supernatural. Throughout the Bible, it talks about how much God cares about us. This would be nice if that's all we had to go by in regards to how God feels about who we are, but it's not. You can take all the words away in the Bible about how God feels about us, and we would know with certainty how he feels about who we are because of his willingness to pay a very high price. You don't have to read anything in the Bible to know how much God cares about you. If you know one event in human history of what God did for mankind by sending his son to die on the cross for you, that's proof. It's not words, that's evidence. I don't care what you've done in the past. I don't care what you're doing now. I don't care what you've chosen to do. I don't care what you've said before. I don't care what you've doubted. I don't care what other religion you've believed in. I don't care what you've given your heart to at times. God has proven with the ultimate price that he cares about you. You don't have to read the Bible to know that. Now, I'm not saying don't read the Bible. Let's be clear. Don't turn me into Pastor Mark, okay? All right? And they'd be like, hey, that Jeremy guy said that we never have to read the Bible anymore. Don't do that. I didn't say that. I'm saying it's not necessary in understanding how God feels about you. I should never have to tell my wife and kids how I feel about them. They should always be able to see it. My coworkers, the same way. Nobody should have to question what I believe in, what I stand for. Because if it's actually a desire of mine, if it's actually something I'm passionate about, there'll be people seeing me do it all the time. You will see me investing my time and my resources, accomplishing the things that God created me to do. God paid the ultimate price by sending his son Jesus to die for you. And as it's super quiet in here this morning, you can hear it. You can hear the ticking of the clock as the time that we have left to be who he's created us to be winds down. Your opportunities to make those choices, to pay that price, to be who he's created you to be, it's getting shorter every day. There's not a single person I know, but that's in the Bible, who ever regretted paying the price of following, being who God created them to be. Lord, I thank you this morning for allowing us to be here. I pray that we would be challenged to think of those things that we've put off, to think of those things that we avoid doing because they just feel too hard. Lord, I challenge everyone in the room to think about the things that they invest their time in, their heart in, that overshadow the things that truly matter in their life. Lord, that I would give up things that cover up who you've created me to be and distract me from accomplishing your destiny for me. I thank you for the opportunity to learn your truth this morning and to be pushed out of our comfort zone. I pray that you would give us the strength, the discipline, and the mental toughness to be willing, to be able to pay the price and to choose your truth, your will for our lives when it's asked of us. In your name I pray. Amen. Thank you guys very much for being here this morning. Thank you guys for having me back. You guys have a blessed week.